How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. And today we are breaking new ground again. We are bringing back in some guests and going to talk to them about their investment vehicles and their preferred methodology of wealth building, if you will, and kind of experiences, things like that. We want to educate and inform, but I also want it to be fun. And I'm going to talk to my man, Shawn Rider, today. Shawn is a guy who's near and dear to my heart. He has been understudy, if you will. I don't know the right term per se. He's been in my ecosystem for quite a long time with Two Brain Business. He owns a gym. But more importantly, he's a father and a husband. And I've seen him do some tremendous things over the last few years. And when I first introduced him to some of my concepts of wealth building, he looked at me like I was fucking crazy for a while. And then he disappeared for like a year. And then he came back and he's like, I believe you. And then I'm ready to go to work. And we'll talk about some of that stuff today. But welcome, Shawn.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a while, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I'm excited. You are a guy that I've always enjoyed talking with and coaching and everything. I feel like oftentimes I describe my programs as like people that are 5 or 10 years behind me. I feel like you're 10 years younger than me, I think. And so you're just a little further back on the journey from a timeline horizon standpoint. And but gaining ground in the financial world, certainly in the last few years, because you've made a lot of great moves. Part of what we're doing when we're building an empire per se is kind of we're trying to stack assets and build wealth so that we can live life on our terms. And one of the things that you've done, I think, is really like slowed down to take in the macro like scenery of life over the last few years. And I've been impressed watching you kind of slow down, because you're literally way ahead of where I was able to do that. Because I was still pushing at your age, like real hard. And that never works. It's like round peg, square hole type shit. And you're just banging your head off the wall, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And that's how I spent my 30s. So having been able to kind of watch your journey, it's fun to see you correct course and kind of not make a bunch of mistakes. And you're way the fuck ahead of where I was at that age. So congratulations to you. What do you attribute, tell us a little bit. I'll shut up for a second and let you talk. Tell the people who you are, where you come from, and what you're up to these days.
Oh man. Yeah. I could take that a million different ways. I appreciate the words and the compliments. It means a lot coming from you, but I think what can I attribute where I am today? If I went way back, it really starts when I was younger. I was quiet, shy, introverted, which kind of forced me to watch what other people were doing. And so as I got older, make a long story short, as I got older, I'm very, very observant of either what people say versus what they do, and whether that's in alignment, or what they say is what they're doing and that's in alignment. And I'm very, very keen on the details of if that person is actually living a type of life and doing things the way that I would prefer to do them in my life. And it's never been about one aspect of their life. I'm trying to look at many aspects of their life. And I think I can attribute it to that, but I think I can also, the fact that I'm making ground, or as you say, I'm making ground faster than what you did at my age. And it may be just because I started earlier, right? I'm very fortunate the timing in which I started entrepreneurship or being serious about building a platform of wealth, or, way back in my early 20s, it was just try and make more money. And that kind of snowballs into these other things, as long as you're looking for education and wisdom and mentorship. And so this is kind of like all those things wrapped up into one. But I opened my first business, less than a year after graduating college. I had a job. I was a teacher, but I knew I enjoyed the thought of being a teacher because it was very controlled in when I knew I was going to work, right? It was the same schedule I've had since I was 5 years old. Show up Monday through Friday from this time to this time, and don't work weekends, don't work holidays, don't work the summer. So from that perspective, I had plenty of time to do something else. And that's where I built a business. I didn't start a business when I was 35 or 45. If I tried to start a CrossFit gym now with a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, I couldn't imagine that, right? So I do understand why people that are in their 30s or 40s that have CrossFit gyms and families, why they may be stressed out, why they may have to sacrifice family time. I totally get that. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that in my 20s before I was married and had kids. There's still struggles. There's still things that I have to proactively do to make sure my schedule is set a certain way. But yes, I'm fortunate enough to, be surrounded by other people that vocalize those mistakes ahead of time. And I made the choice as quickly as I could to implement the things that they taught me. That's basically how I got where I am today, which, still a lot of things to work on, but that's where I'm at.
Sure. And there's a lot of parallels in you and I, and it comes back from like football, education, all that stuff. Because like I wanted to be a teacher and a coach, and I was like, fuck that, it doesn't pay enough money. And so like I went, it's similar to your kind of thought process. Having been a teacher, I never went down that road. I chose the corporate world for a while instead. But I think that, what do you think the biggest hurdle was for you having to transition out of a career into a full-time entrepreneurial venture? What was your biggest fear? Because this is something that I talk to people about all the time, like bridging that gap and making that leap.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a mixture for me, just belief in your abilities and skill set, and the safety and security of how they rope you in with salaries.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like that paycheck hit my bank account on the last day of every single month, and it was tried and true, and I never missed it. So, I could look at the data, I could look at the numbers of my gym and be like, hey, we're growing, and I'm only here a handful of hours, a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, and the weekends. So what if I'm here more? And I knew that the money was there enough to bridge that gap, that I'd be losing the income. But the act of actually paying myself from the business, that was probably the biggest hurdle. Like I still, because I'm a saver, an accumulator, I was sitting on enough cash. And like in my mind, I was perfectly fine with, over time, dwindling that down if I needed to, and only taking what I really needed to pay for the groceries at the end of the month. And so, yes, I probably stayed teaching an extra year than I should have. I went 5 years, and I probably should have left at year 4. But once I left, like I remember the last day of teaching, I literally walked out of my classroom, took a picture of the door, and hoped I'd never had to walk in one again. From a teaching perspective, I love going into classrooms now. Like I'm in there for an hour, I present to the kids, and I leave. Right.
Yeah.
But that was it. It was believing in myself, believing that, and almost like I knew what the data said, but believing in the data as well. Like, is this just luck? And if I come in full bore, am I going to break it? Right. Yeah. But that's also how I sold myself. Shawn, you're growing without being there. If you are there and it doesn't grow, you're the problem. So you probably shouldn't be in that position. But that's, I had to tell myself a story that probably wasn't going to happen. And fortunately, I left teaching, and again, young, not anything else really to distract me, but be at the gym and grow it. Grow it. It was my thing. It was my sole purpose at that time. And it's what I loved to do. And I think that shone through, and that played into being able to grow it.
Perfect. And in the last 5 years, you've even ventured beyond the gym realm, and then taken your capital from your primary business and put it to work for your family, kind of in some different ventures. What are those?
Yeah. So I could probably articulate it a little bit better than if you would have asked me that question a couple of years ago. And yeah, I was very fortunate enough to grow a gym. And if I grew a gym and I was still an a-hole with money and I spent it all, I wouldn't be in a position to do anything with it. So I think we have to acknowledge that just because you're growing a business and you make a good income, whether that's owning a gym, owning a business, or being an employee, there has to be something left over at the end of the month. And for me, I had plenty of left over. And as time went on, that number got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so in my head, I didn't want to lose it. You call it a scarcity mindset, but at the end of the day, it was just security. It made me feel good. I'm not going to dive down into the type of household I grew up in when it came to money, but like I finally had it, or more than I thought I could have. Now, what do I do with it? And that's, again, when I looked for mentorship, and that's where the first phone call with you came into play. And it was like, hey man, I got this amount of money. I don't want it in the stock market. I can't really tell you why I don't want it there. I don't know anything about real estate, but I know keeping it in a bank's not probably the best long-term play. And that's where you exposed me to overfunding life insurance policies. And, like most people that I talk to now about that, sounded too good to be true. I thought there was something that wasn't being told accurately, or I wanted to see the full picture, or if I'm going to move this amount of money into something, I better understand it a little bit more. And I went on a 9-month journey. And at the end of the day, what that gets to is I learned how to preserve my capital first. So capital preservation now is step one to everything I do. I'm still earning money, right? I'm still earning active income. My wife has a job. She's earning active income. We still have to make sure that we have a large amount of money at the end of every single month. Now we have a proactive strategy to preserve that capital, and we're putting it into life insurance policies. And I knew through your teachings and the YouTube videos and the books that I read that it was there for whatever I wanted it to be there for. For me, it was like long-term play for retirement. But if something happens, I have this capital. So whether that's an expense, vacation, emergency, investment, I just didn't have that next thing. And over time, get married, have kids, the gym business, early mornings, late nights. Like that is the main bread and butter if you're on the floor servicing. And, I'm sorry, but I can run a gym during the day, but if I have coaches coaching in the morning, I'm not making them stay until after lunch to have a meeting with me so we can go so my life has just changed.
Yep.
Right. Which again, I'm not just going to throw up my hands and be like, well, I own a gym, but I don't, I can't really service clients. I had to find that next thing, which was complementary to what I love doing, which is educating, teaching, helping others. And that's where business mentorship came in. That's where all this other stuff that was driving my income up over the past couple of years have come into my life. And that is coming into a little bit more money. And so now it was, okay, after the capital preservation, now, how do I scale my time? Because I will not go back into a job at 5 o'clock in the morning. I will be home every day at 5 o'clock when my kids go home from daycare. And at the end of the day, all signs were pointing to real estate. So there you go. Now it's about the real estate. And it was something that I verbally told you 4 years ago, I'm not interested in it. Yep. It doesn't sound attractive to me. I remember having conversations with other people. I'm like, you know what? It just doesn't sound attractive to me. I don't want to be, and I had these stigmas like, oh, I don't want to be a landlord. But what the hell does that actually mean? I didn't know it. I was ignorant. Right. And over time, I just started gaining more education and luckily being in some of the groups that I'm in with you, get exposure to other people doing it. And real estate's not just one singular pathway. There's numerous sub pathways within real estate. And I started diving down the rabbit hole of a couple of those. And over time, I wish I could say I had this awesome plan. But I think it was you not too long ago said get 60 or 70% of the way there and jump in. And that's what I've done. I try and learn as much as I can. And when I feel half competent, I'll take that risk. I'll take that jump. And why can I take the risk? That's such a loaded word, risk. I don't want to dive down the rabbit hole of how people can define that, but things are less risky when you have your money protected first. Yep. And that has helped me bridge the gap in preserving my money in life insurance, taking the quote unquote risk by moving it into real estate. And now I'm a full believer that real estate is a real thing. It's there. I can see it with my own eyes. That in and of itself is also a capital preservation strategy. And at the end of the day, it requires way less time than the other things I've done in my life between the age of 20 and 34. And it pays more money at this point in time. So
Yep. Yep. No, I love that. I love that. And then, so, I mean, what you hit on basically is like one of my big premises, which is like, you're only going to go as far as your education will take you, like as far as financial education, especially. So you had to develop a comfort level with these high early cash value life insurance policies in order to throw a bunch of money into them, because they can be intimidating. I remember I opened my first one, I don't know how many years ago. Even opening a $10,000 policy when it was $10,000 a year seemed daunting, because you felt like you were signing up to be on the hook for that thing forever. And it felt like an expense, not an investment. And so like it took a while for me to understand the kind of yin and yang that are the policies, and their usability, and the fact that you can pull the loans and pay for another policy if you want to. And like there's a million aspects to it. But what do you think? Two questions. One, what do you think was the number one thing that held you back and made you feel fearful of those policies before you understood them, I guess? And then what do you think that pushed you over the edge and made you comfortable enough to pull the trigger?
Oh man, those are actually really good questions. And it's like so much has happened in 4 years that I'd have to dig in my brain to really, really know. But I think I think it goes back to my answer to the leaving teaching. It was believing in the thing and trusting to a certain extent what I was actually reading and who I was learning from. And I don't know, man. I can tell you now, I waited too long, right? 9 months. I could have been 9 months ahead. But with that being said, if I would have started right away, I wouldn't have put as much money into them, because it is hard to flip that switch on, hey, I know money in a bank is accessible right now. Right. And why would I take $10,000 and move it to this place? And even in a high early cash value life insurance policy, now you're at $9,000.
Yeah.
Right. So that it's like, oh, I know it's going from 10 grand to 9 grand. Then I can loan against 8,200, but like I'm losing money. Right. And and I just had to keep going back to these videos and these books and from a few people, but like Nelson Nash, the originator of the infinite banking concept, was like, you have to think long range. Yeah. Right. And what I tell people now, like, I totally get it. Like, yes, you want to be able to see some cash in year one. Right. But the time's going to go by anyways. So you're going to blink and 3 to 5 years is going to go by and you're going to have almost all that money that you put into policy back.
Yep.
Right. And that's if you do nothing. And that's, again, I have to sell myself on these stories. So I had to start telling myself the right story. Get away from the fear, get away from the scarcity, get away from I need to be literally a mile from the bank that's holding my money, and just understand how these things really work. And I probably, this is why I don't host podcasts. I don't think I'm a very good questioner. And so I probably didn't ask the right questions, which is why I had to consume so much content to try and find the right answer.
Yeah. That's your personality though.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah. Because you're like, okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to leave and I'll be back in a little while. Let me
marinate on this a bit. So that was it. Like I just had to consume more to get to a point where I felt comfortable. And then that's also, you hear me preach this, like now I understand I want to be taught by someone that's actually doing this thing, because I want them to pull the curtains back and show me what this looks like. And so when I help people now, it's like, I'll literally pull out my phone and I'll show you how I can pull a loan.
Yeah.
Because for me, if I would have visually saw that, it would have made sense. Like, hey, I can pull a loan. It will be in my bank account in 24 to 48 hours. Right. I just funded policy number 6 2 days ago. I logged in this morning to see if it was active on my account, and poof, there it was. It's active. Poof, the cash value's there. Like, yep. It's real. And now I'm in it. I know how it works. So I try and make things simple for people when they're coming in and trying to educate themselves about it. But for me, I'm a visual learner. So here, let me show you this thing. And this is real. This is real. But you can fall down. And if you're not working with the right people, you know this. Like,
it's a tricky balance. That's what I was going to just say. I mean, like, it really is, like, because I'm an action taker. I need to know just a fucking enough to be dangerous. And like, then I'm ready to pull the trigger. And with these life insurance policies, you really do have to speak to the right people and get them written the right way, or they don't function the way they're supposed to. And so that is important. And it's something that I think would be remiss not to mention, because like you said, you could have got in 9 months earlier, but would you have set up a policy correctly that would have probably had to maybe do the 1075 or whatever it is to transfer it over to an actual policy that was functioning? So from that standpoint, and that's why I preach that should be your base level foundational, like that's where your money flows into initially in everybody's system, like my 7 levels of wealth, like that's the foundational area for it to funnel through. From there, you took it on to the next level, which is deploying that capital again a second time. We talk cyclical rates of money and stuff like that, but not to complicate it, but you took the money from the life insurance policies and then you invested it into what did you decide on?
Yeah. So the first real estate investment I made was a $3.25 million commercial building that, has a couple zeros behind it. The funny story behind that is like, at that point I had, decent amount of money in life insurance policies. And a month before I saw the commercial property, I was looking at literally a 600 square foot condo downtown in my town. And I was like, I could buy this, make a cash offer, finance it on the back end. And I have my first little piece of real estate at a low mortgage every single month. And I'll just take my time. And even though I want to consume a lot of things, I also don't want to take 10 years. So like at this, that was the early beginnings of understanding that, yes, thinking long range and having patience to meet my goals, but at the same time, the dichotomy of having a sense of urgency and getting things that might take others 10 years and get it done in a year. And so I skipped out on the condo, and then I saw this building, and I really just sent the link to my realtor as a joke. I was like, hey, can I just somehow get the financials on something like this? That was the text. I just want to see why buildings sell for $3.25 million.
Yep.
And one step at a time. And 4 to 5 months later, I forget how long it took, 4 to 5, 6 months later, I owned the building. And the cool thing is the amount of money that I had to put down because the universe putting things in place as you put it out there to the world. It was, I got recommended a book, The Lifestyle Investor, and it talks about creative financing. And I read that book right when I was negotiating this building purchase. And I had to put as much money into this commercial building that was $3.25 million that I was going to buy a $200,000 condo with.
Yeah.
The same amount of money. And which means I financed a ton of money.
Sure.
But that kept my money protected. I didn't deploy a ton of it. Now I had to actually deploy a lot of what my cash value was in my life insurance policies. But I pulled that out, put that down. And when you're looking at a commercial building that has a couple of zeros behind it in terms of rent, every 30 days, that bank account got bigger, and it got bigger fast. And so you blink and 100 days go by and you're sitting on cash in a bank account. And when you have life insurance policies with outstanding loans, there's no reason to sit on money in a bank account anymore. And that was my first exposure to utilizing my policies, which was extremely eye-opening. Like I knew in theory what I could do. When I finally put that in practice and was like, oh, wow, I pulled money, acquired something, and in less than 100 days, a lot of that money was paid back. Well, Shawn, then your LLC's bank account was dwindled down. Well, yeah, all I did was transfer money from an LLC bank account over to a life insurance policy. And every dollar I pay back today is another dollar I can borrow tomorrow if I need it. And so then that really quickly, rapidly changed my strategy. I wasn't like looking at real estate. I was looking at real estate every day, but I wasn't putting offers on places every day.
Right.
And so now that I had, basically a $3.25 million portfolio, it was just in one building with 16 businesses in it. It was, okay, what is something else I can have that I would want? I'm a little bit different where like, I don't want to buy the rundown house in 10 states away. Like you and I and a few other people differ on that. Like
Yep.
I want to love the things that I own and look at. And so for me, it was like, I did get interested in the short-term rentals. And so less than 4 months later, I pulled another life insurance loan and acquired my first short-term rental. And then again, all I did was build the system bigger. There was more money inflow every 30 days, cycled that money back into a life insurance policy faster than 100 days. And then I bought the next short-term rental. And so a lot happened in an 8-month period, from zero rental real estate to $5 million of rental real estate. And that real estate has more money flowing into it than my gym business did at its peak. Right. And it requires a lot less time.
Right. Right. And that's the cycle that we try to tell people about with these overfunded whole life policies. But until you put it into practice, it's hard to like conceptualize what it is, because you that's how you say it. You fund the policy, you pull the loan, you buy the asset, then you cycle the money from the proceeds of the asset back into your life insurance policy, fill it up, then you own the asset and you've got your policy filled back up. So that's the cycle you've just described. But until you see it put into practice, it's kind of hard to believe it is possible, right? Because most people grow up just like everybody else with these conventional banking norms. Like you have to go to the bank, you have to get a loan from the bank, fill out all this paperwork in FHA, SBA, whatever it is. And like, that's the conventional method, right? But like what you've done is you've actually, through practice and action, you've opened your eyes to the fact that there is a whole nother kind of financial system. And what it does is it opens your eyes to like the next level and the next level of things, because not everything is what it appears. And the financial system, as it's set up for lack of a better term, the middle class, like it is a financial system that is not set up for you to win it. And so what you've done is you've shifted the tides, and you are now playing in the pool with people that are using a financial literacy system that is set up to win. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Some people listening along understand the life insurance game. Some people don't. At the end of the day, going back to what I wanted to add on what I was saying there was, I took the quote unquote, I don't want to say risk here, but again, just the sake to make a point here, I took the risk of deploying my life insurance loans into real estate for the first time. And yes, it was a big piece of real estate, but I went in that with the intention and the understanding that even if I didn't quote unquote stack cash in 100 days, I had no obligation to pay that loan back. So that was, again, my first eye-opening experience of, oh, you're in control of this situation, Shawn. Even if something negative happens and you're not getting cash flow as high or as quick as what you want or desire or need, you are in no obligation to pay back that portion of your loan, because I'm in control of that loan. And so that's what you're kind of getting at to one extent on this whole new financial system, this financial game, but it's what the banks do. Right. And so it's what the banks do. I, at the end of the day, I could have just taken that loan out, still stacked money how I've been doing it over the years to pay my premiums, and let 3, 4, 5 years go by and just let some interest accrue, and then refinance these properties, take the money, and then pay back the loan. So that sense of control in and of itself is safety and security. Because I'm not at the whim in that portion of my finance. I'm not at the whim of someone else telling me you need to make this payment. So for me and my psychology, that helped out a ton. But yeah, it's like I said, I'll go back to what I said. The days are going to go by anyways. And so when your system is set up to never be liquidated until you're later on in life, 70, 75, 80 years old, the time's going to go by. And that's why I tell people, just give it 1 to 3 years when you open these policies. Yes, you try and get a high early cash value policy, but just let 1 to 3 years go by, because it's going to change the game. And you're going to realize it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's like fine wine. Like I'm excited for year 15, 20, 25, and 30 of these things.
Yep.
It's a game. It's so, and I've already been productive in the first couple of years. And that's me actively using the policies, and they're growing, but they're not growing at the clip they're going to be in 15 to 20 years.
Right.
And it's, so I'm excited to actually experience that feeling as well. But it's, again, whose system is it? It's my system. And that's what you were getting at.
Yeah. And it's our only way. It's kind of a cheat code for civilians, because the banks use fractional banking and they're able to lend out money 10 times. And this is the closest thing we can get to cycling the money 3 times. And if you can do that and effectively do it, it's a huge game changer. And so that's where these assets come into play, to be able to accumulate more assets. And then kind of it's just a game at that point. And you have to keep on playing. Early on, when I opened my policies, I was like, oh, I'm just going to fund these for 10 years. And it's funny that you talk about like year 15 and like you're looking forward to the future with it. Because now I'm kind of like, that was really stupid thinking now that I'm deep in them.
Yeah.
Because I'll never stop funding them.
That's right.
Because the benefits to funding them forever far outweigh like the costs. I just did still at that time, even though I was ready to invest in them, I didn't fully understand them, because I was like, man, if I could just do $100,000 a year for 10 years, I'd be done. Because then I've got $1 million of liquidity sitting right there that I can go lend on anytime. And then whatever, $5 million asset, I can keep buying $5 million asset after $5 million asset, cycling it back in. You do the math. Like, it doesn't take very long to start really doing some damage. But even that was short-sighted. Like, why wouldn't you just continue to put the money in there? So funny. What are you looking to do next, man?
Oh man, what am I looking to do next? What am I looking to do next? I said that I have the dichotomy of patience and sense of urgency right now. And so I think in this moment of my life, because I've bought back a lot of my time and I have a portfolio that I, for lack of a better term, feel comfortable with at this time. You might throw up in your mouth a little bit. I feel comfortable with what I'm owning right now in this moment today. And so I've really gone deep into myself over the past 90 days to answer this question on what I wanted to do proactively. And I really want to get back into some specific education things for different types of avatars. And they all revolve around money, whether it's business mentorship, individual personal finance mentorship, real estate, Airbnb, becoming a super host education mentorship. Just started a program, a beta test program with 12 married couples to get their financial house in order over 90 days. All of these things from the outside, if someone looked at my Facebook page, they'd be like, man, this guy does, a handful of different things. They're all complementary to one another. And there's so much overlap that it's very easy for me to go from this person to this person and have a very similar conversation, because the end goal is to help people improve their lives, both personally, professionally, and financially. So that's what I'm doing right now. I just started working on a course, and in the next 90 to 180 days, I think I'll have a handful of courses to get some people started on, and then work with them one-on-one or in a group setting. But I say that, and then I wake up and there's a property on Zillow that sparks my interest, and I just start taking the next step. And that's what happened this morning. I'm at the gym working out, and I have my phone out, texting a realtor in North Carolina, and I have send a text to them about this property, and immediately text a lender in Arizona that you've connected me with, and I'm waiting on answers back.
Yep.
Right. So while I'm comfortable, I'm still looking and just growing the system bigger from a portfolio standpoint. But if you'd ask me what I'm focused on right now proactively, it's going back to that active value, I think I'm in a really good position now at 34 to add a lot of value into the world, into other people. I was wondering why when I was 25, 26, 27, typing stuff on social media, while I was getting more backlash and not like, oh, like I want to work with you. Part of that was probably how I wrote things back then. I can still be a little brash, but maybe a little overly confident and overly egotistical in my mid to late 20s. But now I think I have a track record to where I can help, just like you said at the beginning of this podcast, I'm trying to help people that are a couple years on behind me on the curve. Sure. and trying to pull them forward. So that's what I'm doing right now, man. I'm very fortunate and grateful to be in a position to take time on a Friday earlier today and record a couple 5-minute videos to dump into my new course, right? Yeah. Like, it's not paying me money today, but I know it's going to add value to people in the near future.
I like the marriage and money concept that you're working on. I think that's a cool one. Having worked with business owners myself for whatever, 10 years at this point or wherever we're at, but like, it's so funny how many entrepreneurs that have their books tightened up at the business and their fucking house is a mess. And like, it's just totally normal. So I think that's a really important one. And then bridging the gap of communication between the husbands and the wives, that's a big one. We talk about that in our fucking group all the time. Cause like, I think money's such a taboo subject. And I think that's why people get anxiety when people start talking about it, and it shouldn't be that way. And like, ultimately, I mean, that's the way I feel for, as far as being a leader and a husband in my family and a father. I think that the best thing I can do is produce as much education for my kids as possible so that they can have a head start on all of these things. Because if I would have known what took me to 35 to learn when I was 15, because I've worked my entire life, like working my ass off has never been a problem. That wasn't the gap that was not solving my wealth problem. It wasn't work ethic. If anything, that's all I had for a lot of my life. And so these are super important topics that you're teaching on. And how is the marriage and money thing going?
Really cool. It was really cool. There's a 10 questionnaire that they get sent early on. Yes, I have them update their financials, tracking the money inflow and outflow right away in at least a net worth statement. But the questionnaire so far I've gotten a lot of good feedback on how those conversations have gone with one another. And I make it clear from the start, like, listen, this is going to be maybe your first, at least I want you to try, your first non-judgmental and finger pointing conversation around money. Like, literally sit there and let your spouse say what their answer is. So answer these questions separately and then come together. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback. So again, this is the first time I'm working with couples, but the Zoom calls I've been doing after the first 10 to 14 days of work have been really, really fulfilling on my end. And it's interesting how quickly someone can make progress in realizing that they're not as bad off as they have been telling themselves they are. And it's because and I've been telling the couples, like, this is why coaches are important. Like, I'm not at your house. I wasn't at your house this morning when the kid threw up on the carpet and the husband walked in and yelled about it. Right. I wasn't in. All I see is the data on the screen. All I see is the answers I'm reading on your questionnaire 30 minutes before I get on a call with you. And it just helps alleviate some of the emotions. Yes, the conversation around money is taboo in our country, but there's just so much baggage that comes along with it. Especially when you're talking about a husband and wife couple, they both came up in different households. I don't know what they heard about money, but they've been carrying that stuff for a lot of years. And I tell them up front, like, me and my wife didn't talk about money before we got married. I wish we would have.
Yeah.
It still took us a couple years. And again, with the help of you and doing some of the vision exercises, it wasn't easy the first couple times around. So my goal this time around with couples is I'm going to try and simplify the process, make it easy. You are going to struggle. There are going to be mistakes. You're going to make hiccups. There's still going to be emotions, but you are progressively going to take action to vocalize what you actually want. Work with someone that will look at it from a slightly different angle than you. And then my goal is to empower you to make decisions. I'm not going to try to make any of these people actually do anything. I want to empower them to make a decision that they feel is in the best interest of their family.
Yep.
Without only listening to one thing that one person's saying on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
And again, I'm one person, but I think my strength is that I can kind of view things from a couple different angles. I think some people get hung up on Shawn only says this one thing about this one tool. And like, no, then you're not looking good enough because I do like, I can look at things from a few different angles.
Yeah.
I think this is where the generalist in me comes out. Like I'm not an expert in any of it.
Sure.
But getting 60 to 80% of the way there can make a huge dent when we're talking about 10 different things.
That's a double-edged sword because that's the way I coach everything too. As you know, like I'm not pointing you in any direction. It has to be your direction, and then I'll support you in your direction. But that, on the other hand, that pisses some people off because they're like, Jeff, you did not show me how to make a fucking 10 million bucks. And I'm like, you didn't tell me how you wanted to get there. It could be a dog grooming business or a fucking hotel or like this many single family homes. Like there's a lot of ways.
I find that maybe I have more experience mentoring the business owners side of things, but I make it like, hey guys, when you're hiring me, I'm going to be able to help in a couple different areas of your business. If you're looking to make a progress in this one sole area, I'm not the specialist. I'm not the expert. But it doesn't take long to talk with business owners. I think this is where I'm like, why I'm leaning towards working with individuals and couples on personal finance. I work with business owners and their businesses are doing pretty solid. And then, like you said, you look at whether it's their personal finances or their personal health or their stress or their sleep patterns or their relationship, their sex life, it's a mess. It's like, dude, why are you trying to make your business grow by 4% when you need to make 50% gains in your personal life? And that gets me, that's what's waking me up in the morning, is trying to get the business owners. You work with a lot of men. I work with a lot of men too. I work with women as well. But for the men, it's like, man, take charge of yourself.
Yeah.
Like stop worrying about the 5% gain in your business and make your personal life 50% better in the next 9. You can do it a lot faster. You can do it a lot faster than you think it's going to take.
Yep. Man, that's such an interesting conversation. I have so many things I thought of when you're talking about these couples and stuff like that, because it's always underlying issues too. It's never, the thing is never the thing. Like I've never cared that my wife spent $300 at Target, but I can bet your ass I fucking mentioned it.
Yeah.
When that was never the
pair
thing,
of shoes
though.
that just arrived on my doorstep yesterday, and the 12 Yeti cups that we have in a counter. It's like someone spends $20 on a mug, yet I just dropped 20 grand on a property. And which one am I bitching about?
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot there to unpack, which is funny. But ultimately it's really like they have to make it more than about money, because there's so many concepts behind it. But then if you can attach it to like events or experiences, or like, hey, we want to go to Disney for 10 days that are all inclusive, or do this with our family, or take our in-laws, like that's super effective with people being able to unify together as a team and work in a direction then. So that's super cool, man. I definitely look forward to hearing more about that. And kind of the results, because it's important. And the other funny thing I was going to mention is you're sitting there and like, I have a real old soul. And I think that if there's money problems and the husband projects on the wife at all, like that's when the husband needs a stern talking to, that like, you should not ever, like your wife should never be able to outspend your earning potential. Like I am a believer in like old school, whatever you want to call it. Like, I think that the man needs to go out and get more money if the family needs more money. And that's my perspective. And so if it's causing a bunch of strife and problems in your home, I think you need to look in the mirror big time as the fucking husband. And so you probably disagree with me on that. But
I think it's context. I think it's context. I think it's dependent. I was on the call yesterday with a young couple in their 20s with twins at home. The husband's in the military. They're stationed in Hawaii. And his income's basically the sole source of income. Sometimes the wife will do some like pet sitting for friends in the neighborhood and get paid money. But I told them yesterday, I said, you guys have to have a conversation on what that looks like. I don't really use the word balance, but I was like, when you actually dive over the next 90 days and look at your finances, you're going to be able to have a conversation on whether he should be at work a little bit more, or whether he has any other skills that he can add on top of that income. And I do like not disagree with you, but like, I would say, is there moments I told the wife, I said, you're probably your most important thing right now is the twins. Like every day is going to go by and the twins are going to get older. So I agree with that. But over time, is there an opportunity for you to do this thing 1 hour a day to bring in a little extra? Not telling them to do that, but to your point, the husband may have the greater opportunity in that specific situation. For the longest time, my wife was the breadwinner of our family.
Yeah.
Right. She's got a great job. She still gets paid very, very well. I've just made investments that have outpaced that. But for the longest time, her income was the source. And so before I started outsourcing some of the personal things, I ran and got the groceries.
Yeah.
I cooked during the day. I did some cleaning around the house. And so I don't disagree with what you said. I think earning more money is, quote, easy to do. I don't want to say it that way, but like, just go get more for now. I
guess contextually, I want to put a little bit more to that. I think your wife should have the opportunity to do whatever she wants. Yeah. So, and this has been triggered by a post that was just made in a group that we're both in, when somebody said that their wife she's back to work now and they just had their baby. And so she's having like all of that, all of the emotions of not wanting to work anymore and stay home with her child and, or their child. And to me, like, that's a no-brainer. Like if we were on the phone one-on-one and we were having that and he had to replace $125,000 a year, I would be like, it's not even a conversation. She should just go submit her 2 weeks. And like you're never going to get this time back. You've heard me talk enough about that. Like my kids are going to be gone when I'm 55 or whatever and off doing their own life or whatever. Yeah. And I'm still going to have 30, 40 years to fucking earn and invest and build businesses and do all that stuff. And so for me, I'm huge on that. And I do think that it's your responsibility to go fill that void and pick it up. And if your wife wants to work, great. If she doesn't want to work, great. Like they should always have that opportunity to do whatever they want. And so you can call me sexist or whatever you want to call me, but I think
flip the genders and it doesn't matter. Just flip the genders and the conversation still, I think, holds true. And like, that's one point on the spectrum. Another, let's just slide over to use smaller numbers or maybe a smaller decision someone could use. Like on a conversation with another husband and wife couple, I could tell that, they do have disagreements on how much money gets spent at Target, to use the example but in this case, it was Target, right? Coming home with this large Target bill. It was like, and then you look at the answers to the questionnaire and you're like, safety and security, the not having the feeling of guilt to buying what I think we need for a family. And it was like, hey, and I looked at the husband and I said, hey man, have you ever asked your wife how much money she would like to have dumped in a bank account that you don't have access to, that she can spend on herself and the kids at the grocery store that you don't even see and you don't ask any questions about? I was like, you don't know that number, $250, $500, $1,000. And to your point, if it's $1,000, just earn the extra 1,000 and dump the money in that account. And we could dive into the rabbit hole of psychology. Like, does it solve the actual problem? It solves the problem of what she's looking at and what she feels and what she's afraid of doing when she goes to the store with the kids because you're at work. Yeah. Solve the problem.
Yeah. That's funny.
But you can't solve that problem if you don't have the conversation.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. It's such a weird taboo thing. And if you're in a really good position being the objective third party though. And I can't tell you how valuable that's going to be for a lot of people because it is so emotionally charged for most couples. Like, because there has been years of track record of like, hey, I'm looking at every line item in the checking account and you're spending too much money or you're not making enough money or whatever's attached to it. Right. And so having that objective third party to just say, hey, you guys are kind of being unreasonable. Like, it's simple. It's just numbers. And like, what do you want? What do you want? And like I bet you're able to come in and like settle some disagreements very easily because it comes from an objective third party instead of the emotionally charged spouse. Yeah. Like,
but hopefully, or in again, one of these cases, it was, you have a 2.25% residential home mortgage rate that you're paying an extra $300 to every single month, yet your wife's afraid to spend $300 at Target. So you don't think you have the money, but you're paying down a mortgage at 2.25%, $300 extra a month.
Yeah.
Like that change, Jeff, that change can happen today.
Yeah.
And it's not going to solve all their problems in their life, but it's going to help that particular situation that they bring to the hopefully unbiased third party, which I'm going to try and be for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a cool thing, man. That is very cool. Where can people find you if they're interested in your courses and stuff?
Yeah. Well, I post a ton on Facebook and Instagram. Shawn, SHAWN _ Rider, RIDER _ on Instagram. That's where I get most of my traction, right? I don't have this awesome newsletter and email list that I'm building, probably should, but building the course on Kajabi. Friend request me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram. You're going to see me posting about it. The links will be there. And that's the easiest way.
Okay. Do you feel like that was Shawn Rider, Shawn _ Rider _? There's an underscore at the end of that too.
I do have a website. I do have a website, winners.com, but it's a play on winning entrepreneurs. So it's spelled WINNEURS, winners.com. That one's still branded for business owners, but you can fill out the contact form and I'll get your email and phone number and give you a text and get on the phone with you.
Cool. It'll
probably be rebranded to everything that I'm doing eventually, but I just haven't gotten around to that part yet.
Are you trying to take this into a full blown scaling opportunity to build a business out of it? Or are you just kind of scratching an itch because I want to help people and I don't have enough shit to do in a day? This is I'm in full control of how far I want to take it and how quickly. I think I've had a governor on myself ever since I did the $5 million real estate in 8 months on like, Shawn, slow down a bit here, really pace yourself. Don't do anything new, but start dabbling in a few things. This is my first like 90-day cycle where I'm pushing a little bit harder. I do have a partner locally that is basically going to be the brains behind the logistics, how my brain doesn't work. Like I can get on a microphone, I can get on a Zoom call, and I think I can be a benefit. I can write some solid content on social media. I don't understand funnels. I don't understand, ad copy, throwing that in and building out all these automations and all that stuff. But I met someone local, the video content, the video editing, adding all that stuff. I can do it on a small scale, but I have it. You watch some of the other guys on social media and they have a team behind them. I finally found that one person that was willing to invest time along with me. And we have a certain agreement in place. And so we're getting very close to launching something else that's complementary to what you see, what I articulated on here. Okay.
But if that works, it's going to be very easily replicatable into the marriage and money and personal finance and infinite banking and all this stuff. We'll just rinse and repeat and just film similar content for a different avatar. And so the hope is to make it bigger, but I don't ever want to lose. I say that with the caveat, like I don't ever want to lose control of my schedule.
Yeah.
And that is so precious and important to me. And so I'm going to be taking one step at a time. And when I can put down the gas, I'll put down the gas. And if I need to tap the brake, I'll tap the brake.
Yep. I love it, man. I love it. Well, man, you're changing lives and helping people make a little money, stack some cash, and build some wealth for their family. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm passionate about it. I think it makes people better parents, makes them more focused. They have more control over their lives, and that is more beneficial. So keep spreading the good word, my man. I appreciate you coming on here.
I appreciate you having me, man. It means more than I can articulate to you.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the show. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Tactical Empire.